Hi friends, it's time to talk about our new vocabulary for penguin chick. Now, as with the past few videos, I'm not going to do motions with them anymore because we make our motions together in our group. So if you do not come to our group, you can just make up your own motions. But I'm going to read through them, talk about the definition, and we will be doing triggers together. Okay? So our first word is webbed. A penguin is a bird with big webbed feet. Its toes are joined by thin skin. So as you can see, the webbing is connecting the toes with that thin skin. The next word is waterproof. Penguins' feathers are waterproof, which keeps the birds warm and dry. So what waterproof means is it does not allow water to get through. So the water just kind of brushes right off. Our third vocabulary word is steer. Webbed feet help penguins steer through the cold Antarctic water. So steer is how you're choosing directions, like what your grown-up does with their car, they steer it. What you might do if you have a toy car or anything like that. Alright, number 4 is whistle. It is very cold in Antarctica. The wind makes a high, sharp sound like a whistle. So you guys know all this, that whistling sound. You can whistle with your like that, and anything is that. Alright, our number 5 is otherwise. The penguin father keeps his egg warm. Otherwise, the egg might get cold. So otherwise is probably one of our trickiest vocabulary words for you guys. It means if you don't do it, something would be different. There would be a different outcome. So we'll make sure to have a good trigger with that one. All right, number 6 is junior. At 5 months, a junior penguin is still younger than an adult. So junior is younger than or below something else. Number 7 is slippery. The scientist tries not to slide on the ice. The ice is very slippery to walk on. So it means it's like slick and it might fall. Alright, the last word is finally. These penguin chicks finally grew up and became adult penguins. Finally, and it's kind of like at last, or like after a long time. So let's look at those definitions specifically. So finally, after a long time. Otherwise, if things were different. Okay, so it's like if you don't do this, otherwise, if you do this, you have to do this, otherwise something will happen, so things would be different. Waterproof, something that doesn't allow water through it. Steer, to control the direction in which something is going. Webbed, having skin between the toes. Junior, younger or having a lower rank. Slippery is difficult to hold on to. And whistle is a high musical sound. So now let's do our triggers. Okay. So as usual, you're going to have your 4 boxes folded. So if you need a review on that, it's where you fold one side like a book and then again to make those 4 squares. So you have 8 total. Alright, and get something to write with. So, our first word is webbed. Webbed. Now, webbed, we're just going to do a sketch, and we're going to draw a foot. So, 3 little toes, either a duck foot or penguin foot, right? Little claws, toes on them. And then the important part is this webbing, the skin between the toes. So that is what makes the foot webbed. Alright, so that was our sketch trigger. Alright, our next word is waterproof. Waterproof, we're going to do an analogy, or like our bridge map. Okay. So waterproof is to no water through, meaning like no water can get through it. Just like, or as, wet is covered or filled with water. So if something is waterproof, it's not getting wet. And something it's wet, it's not waterproof. So that was our analogy, just to review what these triggers are called. Alright, the next word is steer. We're going to do another sketch. It's pretty easy today. And you're going to draw a steering wheel of a car. That's my steering wheel. And you are going to draw some direction arrows of like, because you could steer left or you could steer right. But steering is choosing that direction. All right, so our next word is whistle. And this one we're going to give examples. We're going to use an example trigger of things that whistle. So birds can whistle, make a whistling sound. You can use your lips to whistle. If you throw a ball really fast, if you've ever been to like a baseball game or anything and they're pitching really fast, you can actually kind of hear the ball whistle or something whistle past you. And then wind, we also saw in our trigger, in our definition, could also whistle. So these are all things that can make that whistle sound. Giving you a chance to pause if you need. Okay, so on the back, we're going to do our other 4 words. Now, otherwise is the one we're on. Now, this one is a bit tricky. So we're going to do a multi-flow map, which multi-flow maps, remember, show cause and effect. Okay, and so we're going to do that kind of multi-flow. So first we're going to put in our main box is if you do not practice reading. So if you do not practice reading, that would be our cause. You're going to fall behind. You might not like to read. Right? If you're not going to practice and you're not good at it, it's not going to be fun to do. You're not going to enjoy what you're reading. And you might lose your growth mindset. Because if you don't practice and you don't feel like you can, then that's a loss of growth mindset. So for our otherwise, you have to practice reading. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen. Those are the effects. All right, so otherwise, remember that's if things were different. So you got to practice your reading, otherwise these things are going to happen. Okay, so otherwise is pretty tricky. So you really have to practice that one. All right, our next word is junior, and we're just going to do a sketch. And you're going to do a big stick man and a little stick man. You're going to point to the little stick man. Because remember, junior can be younger or of lower rank. It's pretty easy there. All right, for slippery, we are going to do an acrostic. And we're going to think of things that have to do with the word slippery. Now, as always with these, you can change any of the words that you think you like. I'm just going to give you the ones that I think of. But you can change and put on any you want. And as always, I put a different color. Actually, use a lighter one to show a distinct difference between the vocabulary word and the words I come up with. So the words that I came up with for slippery, for my S I put slide. It's going down the slide. Slides are very slippery. That's the whole point. When I make slime, it always gets really slippery. Ice is really slippery. That's why you can go ice skating. Paint is really slippery. So if something has wet paint or something, it's really slick. It's really slippery. Flippers are pretty slippery. So that's like, think of our penguin flippers. That's how they cut through the water, and they're slick and they're slippery so that they can go fast through the water. A wet floor would be slippery if your grown-up has mopped or something clean. You're out somewhere where they've mopped and the wet floor. You see those wet floor signs? Because it's slippery, you could fall. When it rains, it gets pretty slippery, like mud and just wet grass, anything like that, pretty slippery. And then if something is slimy, it's also usually pretty slippery, right? So that's just kind of almost a synonym. Not quite, but. All right, the last word we're going to do is finally. And we're going to do an analogy trigger. All right, we're going to say finally is the same as last, as to begin is first. So think of your transition words or writing papers, things that I say to begin, I'm going to say about this, it's the first thing that happens. And then if I wrap it all up, I say finally, and that's of course the last thing I'm going to talk about. So those are your vocabulary words. Pay special attention to that, otherwise it's pretty tricky. Give you a second to good screen to pause that. And as always, do your best, work hard, and have a great rest of your day, friends.